Emma,
Hi.
it is so wonderful to have you on the podcast today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and what's keeping you busy?
Sure. So I'm a full-time, actually as of last week or this week, I just saw on my timeline, 5 years, full-time singer-songwriter. And yeah, that does keep me very busy, particularly this time of year when people have been having parties and cookouts and fall festivals and things like that. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm up to.
And can you describe your genre a little bit?
I call it folk rock.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm kind of singer-songwritery. I like poetic lyrics. I'm an Enneagram 4 for anybody that cares.
So what does that mean?
So the Enneagram test it's a personality test, and there are 9 different categories. Have you taken it?
Yeah, I think I'm also a 4,
You
and
are?
I never understood
I
with
love
like a bit of a 7. Too.
Okay, that's
I don't
awesome.
entirely know what it means.
Some of my favorite people are 7. But it's just like the really creative personality type that's like really deep in their feelings.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So essentially, I'm big on lyrics. Like some songwriters and some musicians are really into like the chord progression and like what does the song holistically sound like. But I'm, and I do care about that stuff because it matters how the song moves. But I really care about how the lyrics make you feel and what the song's, atmosphere is about. So
Yeah.
the poetry of it.
And you're classically trained.
Yeah, so vocally, I'm classically trained.
So what does that mean to the layperson?
So starting around, I guess 10, 11 years old, I was taught in the, classical method of singing. So I could have sung an aria, an Italian aria for you, or an opera song. I mean, I still can at my gigs. If there's people in the audience that know that about me, they'll request that, and I'll just strum a C and then break out an Italian aria and just sing that a cappella, which is kind of funny because it's a total departure from the rest of the stuff that I normally sing. But yeah, it's a very different way of singing if you're sort of just into popular music and the popular way of singing. Definitely focusing on sort of your breath and the control, the way that your mouth and your tongue and your throat, all of the mechanical aspects of singing. And it certainly set me up for knowing all the rules so that I could kind of break them later down the way.
So you say, how do you feel like that informs what you do now?
It's cool because I feel like I'm a soprano, so I always grew up singing, like the higher end of
First or second?
First, soprano 1. So I grew up singing all these like pretty high, parts of the song in any choir or anything that I was in, and even in Italian aria, I would sing like a really cool high piece. And even sometimes when I'm writing a song, I'll just add some cool melodic part that's like this, that kind of goes off on this high end, and it's like, I don't know, it kind of will remind me of something that I did a long time ago that I think some popular music wouldn't normally have, I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's a project you're working on right now that you're really excited about?
So my husband Tyler and he's also a full-time musician. He and I have a duo project that we're really excited about. It's called M and Ty now because that's our names, but we're probably going to rename it here probably early next year, sometime when we release our EP. But For now, it's called Emmentai. And it's also kind of like a folk rock thing. And we recently put together a full band to support us. We actually have our first big show coming up. But we're really excited about that. It's pretty much all original music. We've been working with like a team in Nashville to be putting together some songs and some, like I said, our first EP. So we're really excited about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What type of music is it?
It's like folk rock.
Folk rock.
Yeah. And it's cool. Like it's got some of the songs have kind of like an ethereal vibe. Like we have one called Chasing Ghosts that I love. I just kind of like all things like historic and, you know, kind of old, and I like ghost stories and stuff like that. So there's a lot of songs that are kind of informed by like our interests and things like that. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting amalgamation of songs that we've pulled together for this project. So we're really excited to share them with everyone.
Can't wait to hear it.
Yeah.
So you have a background in communications.
Mhm.
You have a background in classical music.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a creativepreneur?
Oh, never heard that word before. What does that mean?
Kind of like an entrepreneur who's, you know, dabbling in the creative arts. Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
Yes, I would. I think like a long time ago when I started college and I was looking at all the different things that were like laid out as things I could be doing with my career or my, you know, major or whatever. I remember like, okay, well my dad's in business, you know, he's like a marketing executive for his company, and you know, my mom was an art director, like she's very creative. Like, what are the things that I could do? And I'm a musician, but I have all these other interests. I was like, okay, well, I could go, you know, do this business school type of a route. Then I was like, no, okay, I could never see myself working for someone else. Like, I knew instinctively when I was a teenager, not having any sort of like real world experience, I was like, I could never work for someone else.
Right.
So I was like, okay, whatever it is that I do, I'm definitely always going to work for myself. So even though I actually chose back then, I was started out as actually pre-med, like,
Oh, wow.
because I really liked biology, and I had done like AP bio and like really like excelled in like anatomy and biology and classes and stuff like that. But halfway through, I changed to journalism because that was another thing that I loved. I had a lot of interest.
The most interesting
if you
people
can't tell,
do, yeah.
if you can't tell, I have a lot of interest. But the one thing that I did always know was that, like, I'm never gonna work for someone else. Like, long term, like, that's not me. So I ended up graduating from college, and for the short term, I did work for other people. I was a leasing agent for a apartment complex in Chapel Hill, where I graduated, because I think I just wanted a job. And out of school, after I graduated from broadcast journalism school, I knew that to make it in that world, you really had to be like super passionate about that. I mean, you had to want it and be cutthroat to succeed. And I did like it. I enjoyed it enough to, you know, be good at it, but not to like climb the ladder all the way to like New York City or something. So I was like, okay, this isn't where my heart is. Like, let's go explore some other things first. So I was like, okay, let's just get a job and see what else happens. So I was a leasing agent for a couple years. And while I was a leasing agent, I picked up my guitar again. And I was like, okay, because I taught myself guitar when I was 14. So I picked it up again, and I was like, all right, let's just start playing some songs. And I put up some pretty bad YouTube covers just to like start somewhere. And then I went with my first full-time job tax return and bought some recording equipment. And that was kind of like where I started this, and that was in like 2013, so this is like 6 years ago. I started my, I guess, journey into becoming a full-time musician again. And so I went and I just kind of like started getting up enough material to play my first full-time gig. But it wasn't before moving back home to Greensboro, where I actually started working for Ralph Lauren, which was just a better job opportunity, I think, where I could kind of like save more money and be working and living at home where I had more connections in the community. And I worked there for 2 years. Again, I was building up more for my set, for my music, bought equipment so that I could play out. And then I started actually scheduling things at venues day by day, and I would make, connections with more people that owned like small coffee shops and restaurants. And eventually it just got to the point where, I was making enough money that it was like, okay, this might be sustainable. And like to the point where I could like think about quitting this job that I have that is like killing me. Like it wasn't like a, forever job anyway for me. And again, I was working for someone else, and that was just not, it's just not who I am.
Right. It's so beautiful that you knew that from such like a really young age. Like you were like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
And you were able to like stay the course with that. Like, I mean, obviously you experimented a little bit, but like you were able to identify that and keep moving towards what was important to you.
Yeah. Well, and anytime I got off track with that, it's like something inside me was like really screaming that wasn't right for me, because I would just be super depressed and something felt wrong and something felt off, in the way that anytime I wasn't playing music or had music like in my life as a centerpiece, something felt off. So it was like everything kept directing me back to, you really need to be like figuring out what your thing is, and it needs to have to do with music,
Yeah.
So yeah, I needed to be an entrepreneur. I needed to figure out how to work for myself, but I also needed it to have something to do with music. And it finally got to this tipping point where I just like could not take it anymore. And one thing led to another, and I had, I was making enough money. And I mean, when I say that, it wasn't like it just happened. I was hustling so hard outside of, and anybody that's done this knows, like you have to put in so much work outside of what your main, your main job is to make this other dream become your main thing. So it's got to be like all night you're staying up, like working on your website or making, touching base with people over email, or like writing or whatever it is you're doing. And it finally got to the point I felt like I was living this double life, because you are. I mean, like I'm an artist on one hand, and then people at work see me as this like, person in regular work clothes or whatever, and you're having to like be this executive assistant. And so it finally got to where, as I say, like the fear of never trying outweighed the fear of failing. And then finally I just was like, okay, well, I'm 20, I think I was 24 or 5, and I was like, okay, this is my shot to just like say that I tried. And if I fail, then like I'm happy that I tried, and that's all I can say. All I can do is try.
Did it feel risky to you?
At that point, not really. Not anymore, because I knew that I was putting in so much work. It would have felt risky like 6 months or 9 months before, even 3 or 4 months before. But I just knew like I had X number of gigs lined up. I had, I had a roommate, like I had, you know, I just had set myself up like financially, and I can't stress that enough if anyone's like, you can't just like jump off a cliff and like have no mattress like underneath like to land on. You can't just be like, okay, here we go, she said just try.
Right.
But oh, sorry. But I mean, I really had put all my like fail safe things in place so that I was like setting myself up for some level of like success, and probably had saved some money or something. But again, like the risky thing for me was knowing myself, like having some deep feeling of like regret, like years down the line. I was saving myself from that.
Right.
That would have been way worse than being like, well, no, I worked for, you know, this ex corporate company for however many more years. Like,
right. How many years would you lose? Like,
yeah, I don't regret at all not working there for like the last 5 years.
Yeah.
At all. So I'm here, and I'm really happy, and
I think when people hear that type of thing, they think, well, it must have been easy for you. And like,
oh God,
like I think that's what's in the back of a lot of folks' mind, and I think the truth of the matter is that there's like, you know, it's like that, you know, picture that we see so often where folks are seeing like that you're out there and you're playing gigs and it's your full-time job, and that's the tip of the iceberg. It's like they didn't see those sleepless nights where you're working on the website.
Oh,
like
I'm
you said,
still not.
like,
No, there's still. I couldn't tell you how many times I like have really bad days. Like this week, even probably. Like there's so many lows that come with the highs, like of working for yourself and being an entrepreneur, and like right now the hustle is still hard. Like,
right.
I mean, 5 years in, it's not like I've reached any sort of pinnacle. I mean,
do we ever?
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's so many pros that come with like just getting that regular paycheck and working for some other company where you're like, oh yeah, my health care, yeah, like
taken care of.
Oh yeah,
check.
done.
Yeah.
401k done. Like I get to go home on the weekends and like forget about work because it's mindless, and I mean, granted, a lot of people get a lot of value out of the company they work for, and there's a lot of great, you know, they love the mission and all that, and there's a lot to be said for the work they do and the people that they get to work with. But no, I mean, yeah, day to day, like I eat, sleep, breathe, live. My home is my office. My bed is my office. It's probably an unhealthy thing. Like there's probably a lot of ways in which I could separate the things that I do, but like you have to be willing to like hustle so hard to get where you want to be, because if you aren't working for it, like nobody else is working for it for you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the thing, you are your own boss, but I mean, nobody's going to work harder for you than you're going to work for yourself.
Absolutely. I'm curious where you get the ideas for your songs. Where does the inspiration for song writing come from?
It could be anywhere, at any time. Sometimes when I'm driving, sometimes it just will come out of literally the middle of nowhere, and I'll just start humming something, and then words just will come out on top of that melody. One song that I've been singing a lot lately with Tyler that we've added to our band set, I wrote while I was brushing my teeth, literally, and sometimes it's just because the words fit really well over the melody.
Right.
But sometimes it's like something very specific that you want to write about, and that you're prompting yourself to write about because it's been like weighing on you. So it could be anything.
Yeah.
There's different ways to approach it.
Do you ever get stuck creatively speaking? Like, do you ever feel like you're in a creative rut?
Yeah. I think, but it's like what they say, which is really typical. It's like a muscle, and the more that you use it, like the more freely like it flows. So, you know, if you're writing every day a little bit, or if you're writing every week a little bit, it's just easier. Yeah. And if you're, you know, just coming up with chord progressions and melodies, or like a little bit of poetry here or there, whatever, like the more quickly you can just come up with songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's something you've done recently that scared you and taken a lot of courage, but you're glad you've done?
Well, I'm about to, but it's been learning, kind of like relearning the piano and playing out live, playing the piano.
Why has that been scary for you?
Because it's just a whole new instrument for me. Like, it was my New Year's resolution to pick up the piano. So I'm like self-taught on piano and guitar. Like I taught myself guitar when I was 14, and that's how I've been playing it for a long time, but I am like super comfortable on it because I've been playing it for so long, and that's how I accompany myself on all my gigs, which is, has been just hours and hours over years. But the piano I've spent way less time on. So I just had, I also taught myself a long time ago when I was younger, but we just had like a really cheap, like Yamaha, almost just like plastic keyboard, growing up. And so I taught myself just because I thought it was fun. And then we had an actual upright piano when I was in high school that I played after school, and then did not play any piano for, 10 years. And then finally this year I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it my New Year's resolution to like start playing piano a lot more. So for this show and for this, now that we put a band together for and Ty, I started playing piano on like a bunch more songs, and I've started writing songs on the piano again. So
I heard one of yours recently that you posted, and I thought it was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
I'll probably link to that in the show notes.
oh, thank you. Well, that is so that's scary. Is like the idea of me like not blundering all these songs that I've had to memorize on piano, just because it's a new instrument, and anytime you're like, stepping out and doing something new, it's like, it's vulnerable because it's not like a second, it's not, it's something that I'm having to actively think about while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas guitar's second nature.
So you're growing, like you're making your comfort zone bigger.
Yeah. I like singing to piano because that's how I was trained to sing. So I feel more natural singing to a piano, if that makes sense. So
Absolutely.
I think it might become my new instrument, but I don't know. We'll see.
That's fun.
Yeah.
If there are people that are feeling creatively stuck, or maybe even feeling like there's something in their heart that they want to take a risk and start doing, from learning a new instrument to, beginning to work towards a dream, what advice would you give them?
Honestly, just do it. It's not as scary as you think it's gonna be. Like I said when I did the blog post, I truly believe that you will end up regretting the things that you didn't try more than the things that you did. I truly believe that. And that's as simple as like the pair of jeans that I try on, and I'm like, okay, which of these two do I like think I'm gonna regret not getting more?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's as simple as those decisions to like, that's the reason I'm married to my husband. It's like, will I regret not going on this date with him, or will I regret going on the date? Like, I'm not gonna regret going on the date, but I'll regret not giving this guy a chance because he's like the greatest guy. And here I am. I would have regretted not giving my career a shot in music. Like, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, where I am. Like, I wouldn't have any of the opportunities that I've had. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. Like, all of the things that I've done if I hadn't said yes to so many things.
Absolutely.
So that's my philosophy, and I think a lot of people scare themselves out of things. And again, it's like a muscle.
Right.
If you just tell your fear to like be quiet and you start flexing your bravery, like,
ooh, flexing your bravery.
really, it can be like it's like a game, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. Like once you start just like telling yourself, like if you believe that you're more confident than you are, if you just believe that you are, you know, just believe it and you will be. Essentially.
Start playing the bravery game. Is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, and don't think about the worst thing that could happen, because 9 times out of 10, the worst thing that could happen is not that bad anyway.
Yeah. Like, or think about, you know, it's like focus on the best thing that could happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah,
it's like riding a bike. When I learned how to mountain bike many years ago, your bike goes where your eyes go.
Yes.
And so if your eyes go,
oh God, no,
you know, off the path, you're
Don't
gonna
go
go
there.
off the path.
don't look that way.
Yeah, and it's like kind of like a law of attraction, right? Like
Yes.
you're gonna go towards what you're focused on.
Yeah.
So if you're focused on worst case scenario, that's where you're gonna end up. But if you're focused on the best things that could happen, you're probably gonna end up there.
Ask, believe, receive.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly. I know. Yeah, I really believe that, though. The more you put it out there and believe in yourself, the more that, you know, it starts to come into fruition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could go back and like sit down your high school graduating self
Mm-hmm.
and give her some advice, what would you tell her?
I think it's sort of like what I'd said before, though. I just think we all still struggle with like insecurity and sort of worrying what other people are thinking, and less about like staying focused on your own path and like what is relevant to what you are doing, you know? And what are you trying to get out of this life and this journey, and keep your eye focused on your own ball. Like, and like just be true to your own, you know, creative self. Because if I just started being more authentic to that, like, sooner, I think I would have, you know, maybe come into this, like, music journey faster than I have. Maybe I would have started doing this in college versus waiting till a couple years after college. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like the idea of keeping your eyes on your own ball.
Yeah. Because everybody's looking at everybody else's ball and wishing they had their ball, or like worried that people are judging their ball.
Which we're all so wrapped up in our own lives that we don't have that much time to judge others.
Yeah,
you know?
it's so true. Nobody's looking at your ball.
Yeah. So, how do you live a life of abundance?
My dog and my husband, and I've been going on long walks every morning, and that's been pretty awesome. It makes me want to get up earlier, especially because it's nice and cool and the sun hasn't really come out all the way yet. So I just try and like take time and let that be my time to like live in the moment. And I don't know. I love spending time outside, like any chance I can get. Like I make lunch. I mean, I love being able to work from home, so that's pretty great. So I'll take my lunch outside, and I work in my garden as much as I can outside in the yard. But yeah, what else do I do to live in abundance? I mean, I feel like I've created this life that's sort of like tailored to the way that I want to live it. And I mean, there's, like I said, there are a lot of ups and downs emotionally, and a lot of doors that slam, and a lot of no's, and like hard parts. But like overall, like at the end of the day, I get to do what I want, and I get to travel when I want. I get to set my own boundaries, and I get to go play music where and when I want, and you know, make my own trajectory, and that's pretty cool. So I would consider getting to, you know, live my life the way I want to be, like total abundance.
Yeah.
So
It sounds like it.
yeah.
Is there anything else you'd you'd like to share?
I don't know. I mean, I think that everybody should consider doing the thing that they are scared to do, especially if it's been pressing on them. I mean, I think if you're totally content and happy doing what you're doing, then like that's amazing, and do you. But like, if you are unsatisfied and there is something like specific that has been weighing on you, then take steps and seek counsel from somebody that can help you fulfill that thing, or begin to take steps towards doing that thing, because you only have one life, and you don't want to wake up in 20 years and say, I really wish that I had tried that.
Right.
And you really truly have very little to lose in trying it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And where can, if people want to come listen to you play, where can they find you?
They can find, I think it's best to follow, well, mine and Tyler's Instagram or our Facebook pages. So I'm at Emily Music, EMMALEE, Emily Music. And then M and Ty is EMANDTY Music.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And will you play us out? This is a first for the Yoke and Abundance podcast. I've never had a musician on, but would you mind playing us out?
Sure.
And what song are you playing for us today?
Let me do, I'll do the Marilyn Monroe, or the Monroe Mama song.
Okay.
It's one of my newer ones.
Excellent.
It's funny, I wrote this on piano, so I have to like look up the chords because I'm more used to playing it on piano than guitar. Let me pull this guy out.
Do you have enough room?
Yeah. Don't want to be out of tune for y'all.
Okay, so tell us the name of the song one more time.
It's called Monroe Mama. This is the one that I wrote when I was brushing my teeth. You might say I'm a wild one. I've always been on the run. Never answered to anyone until I met you. You might say that I'm free. Always choose who I want to be. And I make my own company until you met me. But I could be a Marilyn Monroe mama. Little white dress coming up too high. Take me for a spin in a York show mama. Paint the town red with me tonight. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This is awesome.